Hello everyone, welcome back to Dust House with Thomas Gunn. Today we're going to be making some ribs. So as you see, I've got a slab of ribs here. These are pork back ribs. When I buy them, I try to make sure there's not too much fat on them because you want more meat than fat on your ribs. So right now we're just going to make the rub. I want to say rub, but I'm not really mixing all the spices together. And then you're going to wrap it in parchment and then foil. If you don't have parchment, you can just do the foil, but I suggest greasing the foil on the inside, because once you wrap it, after they're in the oven, sometimes the foil does tend to stick to the ribs. So you can avoid that by using parchment or by either spraying the inside or rubbing it with some kind of oil or grease. So the first thing we're going to do is sprinkle with salt. Just make sure that there is, an even coating. Same now with pepper. After the pepper, we're going to put some onion powder. And then a little bit of garlic powder. And don't go overkill with anything. And I'm going to add just a touch of chipotle powder, chipotle chili pepper. You could also use paprika. If you're using something like the chipotle, do it lightly because it's spicy. Unless you like it very spicy. Turn them over and repeat. So some salt, some pepper, some onion powder, some garlic powder, and on this side I will not be adding excuse me, any chipotle because it's enough on the other side. So here we go. Now we're just going to wrap this. And this will now go in the oven. Well, actually, let me correct myself. This you should now let sit for a while. I actually usually do it the night before and let this sit in the oven overnight. That way all the spices really permeate the meat. If you don't have that much time, if you could let it sit for a couple of hours, that would be great. But, to be honest, I've also done it not letting it sit at all. So put this on a rack. Put it in the fridge, let it sit as long as as much time as you have. If you don't have time, it's fine, just put it in the oven. So once you're ready to put it in the oven, preheat your oven to 325 degrees and put it in for 3 hours. Yep, folks, 3 hours. That gets the meat really tender. It's only after that we're going to put a sauce on top and put it back in the oven just for a short while. So, but for now, this will go in the fridge, it'll marinate, and then it'll go in the oven, 325 degrees, 2.5 to 3 hours. And once it comes out of the oven, I'll show you the result and we'll go on from there. So let's make the sauce for the ribs. We're going to add in a small pot 1/2 cup of brown sugar, then 1/2 cup of ketchup, and the secret ingredient, 1/2 cup of cola. This trick I actually learned. There's a local rib restaurant, and this is rumored to be their secret ingredient. Then about a tablespoon of fresh chopped rosemary. If you don't have fresh, just use half the amount of dried, so 1/2 tablespoon of dried. We're going to add some Worcester sauce. Let's add a tablespoon of that. About a teaspoon of salt. Remember the trick about the palm of your hand, the little well it makes? That's roughly a teaspoon. Let's add about half a teaspoon of paprika. I'm not going to add the chipotle because that would be too spicy. Let's do the same. Half a teaspoon of onion powder and half a teaspoon. I don't have my measuring spoon. I don't know where it went, so I'm using an actual teaspoon. And about half a teaspoon of garlic powder. Let's give that all a whisk. Now we're just going to give that a quick taste to see how the flavors are. Tastes right to me. So we're going to put this on the oven. We're going to bring it to a simmer, let it simmer for, well, not longer than 5 minutes. Once it's done simmering, that'll help it thicken up a bit. Let it simmer for 5 minutes, take it off the stove top, and just let it sit. It can wait now until the ribs come out of the oven. Alright, so these just came out of the oven. It's piping hot still. They were in for 3 hours. You're going to unwrap this. And be careful because there is liquid in here from the ribs. So I'm just going to, I have the sink right here. I'm just going to put, actually if I can lift these over. These do get really hot. You know what, just let me get a fork. There we go. And as you can see, I've lined my pan with some foil just to make cleanup easier afterwards. Push that over. So I don't know if you can see, but here, you know, the bone is, the meat is coming off the bone, which is just what you want. Now, while they're warm, here's the sauce we made earlier. Let it cool down because when it's hot, it's, you know, it gets thinner. As it cools, it thickens up again, which is what you want. And just dab a generous amount of that on the warm ribs. I find if you do this while the ribs are warm or hot, it soaks in much nicer. Nice generous layer. You will have some sauce left over. What I do, typically I will serve this with rice. You could also serve it with fries. And if you're doing it with rice, you can use the sauce. Just serve it separately and people can pour it over the rice. So do the same thing on the bottom. Nice layer. And then these will go back in the oven. Just so that all this sauce starts to caramelize. So there we go. I'm just going to move this over. So these will now go in the oven. Again, the oven is at 350. So let's put this back in and I will let you know. You know, typically what I do at this point is I broil them. So you know what? Scrap what I said about the 350. Turn off your oven, put it back on broil. Put this pan in the middle or the bottom third of your oven and put it in and let it broil. Once you see the sauce start to bubble and start to dry out, open the oven and do another layer of the sauce. So do that 2 or 3 times for the bottom side, 2 or 3 times for the top side. I'll try to show you that as I go along, and then they'll be done. So I'm going to put these in the oven now on broil, and I'll be back. So here we are. This is about 7 minutes of broiling in the middle of the oven, as you can see. Actually, I'm not sure you can see because I pulled it out, but the sauce over here was bubbling, and in some places the sauce has dried out. This was the first step. So now just slather on some more. Just tap it on and put it back in and let it do the same thing again. On broil, it'll probably take another 3, 4, 5 minutes. On the bottom side, twice is enough because there's really not much meat there, and that's really not the part that you'll be eating. After that, we'll flip it over and we'll do the same to the top side 2 or 3 times. So here we are, the ribs are done. I let them broil 2 times per side. So just to show you, I mean, don't they look great? These are fall off the bone tender. They will just come apart so easily. The meat just comes right off. You're going to love these. So give these a try. It's a bit of a long process, but most of it is in the oven, so it's really not too much work. And they are mouth-wateringly tender, and you and your family will love them. So there you go, Ribs 101. Like the video, subscribe, ring the bell, give these a try, let me know if you like them, and bon appetit.